This really could have been one of the best things Wargaming have brought into World of Tanks console, but granted that Wargaming have these bright ideas, it just didn't work out too well. And of course today we are talking about the K91 version 2, the brand new premium tank within World of Tanks that you can pick up at a 40% discount right now within the game for 4,950, as you can see over in the right hand corner. If you do pick it up, however, you're probably going to find the exact same thing that I do, and it being a very lackluster premium tank within World of Tanks. It has so many good things about it that I absolutely love, but I just can't get over some of the negatives of the tank, and we'll get into that now. So, the key statistics of the vehicle are that it actually has pretty decent turret armor. It's not going to be able to bounce, those tier 10 games that you can meet with this tank, but definitely against tier 8s. Sometimes against tier 9s, if they're not loading high premium rounds, you'll be able to bounce some. Obviously, you do have these kind of flat cupolas that are on the sides of the tank, which do get penned very easily. At the top, they kind of flatten out, and you can see from the side profile they're fairly flat, and yeah, you will get penned. And of course, this massive lower plate that you can see at the bottom half of the tank hull, so you can actually get penned really easily there, and often when people are auto-aiming you, you'll also get penned because of the flat plate. If you try to angle, it basically nullifies it all, and so yeah, frontally this tank is okay as a medium. It's kind of trying to be the 430 of the 430U, that is, of tier 8, and when you call it and compare it to the K91, it's not really a fair comparison. It does have good DPM, it also has really, really great mobility, but the problem lies in the gun depression that this tank gets. It's just terrible, and it definitely doesn't work. 5 degrees of gun depression, yes, medium tanks do have 5 degrees of gun depression, but this one, because it is actually fairly tall in terms of a medium tank, and it is very, very long and wide, the premium tank just doesn't work very well within World of Tanks. And so yeah, trying to get the gun depression to in some of the pretty flattest terrains is a lot harder than, say, if you were a slimmer, shorter tank within the game, where actually 5 degrees of gun depression isn't the end of the world, but this one definitely is, and you'll find that if you do decide to purchase this tank. But I guess this is what the review is all about, is to try and show you in World of Tanks via the review what you can actually expect of the tank, and that is exactly something that I have found. Now, whether or not we could potentially use novel tank builds with this, that maybe a video will be coming soon, but in terms of actually setting it up to have good games, well, you definitely want to utilise the fact that it has pretty good concealment for a medium Russian Soviet tank within the game, and obviously you've got advanced optics to help with that, to boost up the view range and basically enable you to get some assistance damage, because you are going to be relying on your assistance damage within this tank, because although you have pretty decent DPM of, if we have a look here, I believe in the region of like 2000, something like that, 1808 here DPM, it just isn't enough on its own to be able to hold back the waves of opponents that will be coming towards you, and that is something that I really didn't like with this tank. The good thing about it, terrain resistances are amazing, and so yes, it can get up to the top speed of 55 kilometers an hour very, very easily, and you could even argue that maybe you'd want to run the advanced powertrain and traction system to potentially boost it up to a staggering 62 kilometers an hour, where yeah, that's a pretty decent amount for a medium tank, and you'll be able to race into a lot of positions early on and get some spotting damage. And so yeah, maybe we'll have a look at that at a later date. But anyway, regardless of that, obviously Consumables, as with every single premium tank that I play, and pretty much any tank that I play, premium repair kit, small med kit, and then an enhanced rations. Loaded a couple of premium rounds for those tier 10 games, because 212 penetration on your standard rounds is very painful against some of those tier 10s that you will meet, like the E100, etc. However, regardless of all of that, let's get into some gameplay and show you why this tank just doesn't quite work, and why Wargaming just got it wrong. Just a tad. It didn't have to be much different, but yeah, let's have a look. So let's see what all the fuss is about then with this tank, and whether or not it really is as bad as I'm trying to make out, or whether it's not as bad as I'm trying to make out. Anyway, let's see what happens within this game. It is, of course, Pilsen, a pretty good map, I guess, for the tank, given the fact that this tank is somewhat like a 430U. The armor model definitely doesn't work as well as a 430U, unfortunately, so don't go purchasing a thinking it. The DPM, kind of similar. The problem with the tank, however, is that the armor model just doesn't work as probably you want it to within this. Yes, the turret, if you manage to get hold down in the tank, is fantastic, but with the 5 degrees of gun depression, yes, it doesn't work very well in the majority of situations unless you get on very flat ground against your opponents. But then how many forward frontal positions are completely flat ground unless you're fighting on a map like Pilsen? And that's probably why we managed to pull out a pretty decent game within this one, and I guess you'll have to wait and see as to how it actually performs in the end. But of course, at the beginning we can use the mobility of the tank, which, believe me, is amazing. This tank feels so quick. Even if it isn't necessarily the quickest tank you'll ever play in the game, the speed at which you just think it is can go, and how fast it feels to accelerate is so nice, as we do manage to bend around the corner against the Absolution here, which is something I don't really understand how, but okay, as we get hit by basically the King Dragon there, the Type 59-2. We've also got a Batchet 12T in front of us, and of course the Absolution, who is bullying one of our teammates over to the left hand side, which we're about to decide to go and help, because, you know, sometimes you do have to help your team in World of Tanks. Sometimes doesn't go well for you, but okay. Anyway, picking up the damage on the Cheeto here. Now it is time to go and help this Skoda T25 with the Absolution. We're going to try and get in the way of any shots that he'll be able to make, do a little nudge into him. Luckily that Skoda actually picks him up before we manage to do anything, but yeah, to begin with, pretty okay start to the game. We've certainly carried this forward flank forward even, and we're going to be hoping to push even further. We're going to, of course, side scrape, something you probably don't want to do too much in the K91-2 because the side armor is pretty weak, especially if you're coming up against tier 10s that will be able to overmatch you. And yeah, that's something that will definitely happen. I had a little accident against one of the bars, the tier 9 tank destroyer from the German line, and didn't go very well for me. Anyway, regardless of my escapades with the bar, what we have here is the Type 59-2 who hit me earlier, and still feeling a little bit salty with that, but we'll try and get one into him as we fire. But there you see the gun depression just really affecting you because it is so long. If you get a bump at any point along that whole entire length of your tank, it just blooms it up so massively, and it means that your tank round will actually go flying over the target, and that's probably something you don't want with an accurate medium tank, is that sometimes you end up firing at the sky. Obviously, with this, what we need to do is get to grips with how to play the tank. Well, how do you want to be playing it? Well, you've got two choices really. You can be an up-close, complete support tank within the game, or you can alternatively play it like a sniper, because the accuracy is fantastic and you'll be able to genuinely bounce a few rounds sometimes, and you'll be able to pinpoint accurate shots into the opponents that you'll be coming up against, and that's something I don't think a lot of tanks have the ability to do within the game, and something that you'll probably be wanting to kind of take advantage of. Obviously here you see the accuracy on the move once again against the Black Prince there. AMX isn't looking our way. We've also got the Rheinmetall, or the M48 Rampanzer even, going to try and put a round into the lower plate, but there you go, the standard rounds just being ineffective against that guy right there. So this is where we load the premium. 290mm of penetration, more than enough to go through any tier 8 heavy straight through the front if you actually aim at the weak point. Obviously, weak point of the French tier 8 heavy tank there is the lower plate, and if we fail to get the lower plate, we can go for the cupola, and somehow with the bending rounds that we've got loaded in this thing, we can somehow sweep it around the corner into the cupola of the AMX here. Now obviously in this game it's 9-5, we should probably be winning this game. It would be a pretty hard slog to actually lose it, but what we will do is be super aggressive. We've got to help our team out here with the AMX, who's deciding that he's going to now try and YOLO us, and that doesn't really matter. We've got the hit points to at least take one hit as long as we manage to hit him, but he bounces off of us anyway, trying to go through that door there, and now it's time to go after the Black Prince over here. Get him out of the game, then we can focus on whatever's left within the game. Obviously put one round into the side of him, very easy. We'll load back to APCR since there's a light tank, a medium and a tank destroyer that I all know have basically no armour within the game. We've then got the UDES who's deciding he's going to push over on the right hand side over here, so we're going to put one round into him. Very easy indeed to be able to do that, and this is the sort of thing that you can do with the object or the K91-2 or the Object 430U at tier 8 as I like to call it. But yeah, not a bad round. 2,990 damage, probably one of the rounds that you would be fairly happy about. Not necessarily the overwhelmingly amazing round that you probably would see from other tanks in the game, but certainly not bad. And in this point, what I'm going to do is try and get hold down along the tank here. Obviously, if we can get hold down, it makes it a hell of a lot harder for enemies to actually pen us from the front. The only problem is if they manage to get that kind of unangled plate on the either side of the hull armour of the tank, which could be a little bit of a problem. Now, I did notice that all three of the enemy tanks were over this side, so what we're going to do is just be not a little bit mindful as to what they're going to be doing, as the object or the UDES over there does eventually get spotted. We've also got the light tank who's just picked up a kill on our Object 244, which is disappointing. And now we've got to try and deal with an UDES here who's pushing forward on us. And in this situation, what you need to do is keep the frontal armour of your tank continuously as much as possible towards the front. Because yeah, if you can turn the tracks and the turret at the same time, you're going to be in with a much better chance of actually surviving. What we do need to be careful of now though is of course the E25 who's now coming around. We're going to try and then turn against the E25 here and just hope that we can actually bounce around. Unfortunately, we are now a one-shot, but we will put a round into him, and now we're going to try and get around. I made a misplay, looked to the wrong way, and unfortunately we do actually manage to get taken out by the pesky E25, firing probably premium rounds to go straight through the upper plate of our tank, and yeah, taking us out of the game after dealing a 4,000 damage total with a little bit of assistance and a decent amount blocked as well for a medium tank. Obviously, the two tanks left alive, we will skip ahead to the end of the game and see exactly what the result was, and of course, as you see here, we did manage to be defeated within this game. Close defeat, not awful, not at least for me anyway, as we pick up 4,000 damage, the highest damage game that I managed to pick up in this tank, with 258 assistance and 930 blocked. It was only a first class, although it was a loss, picking up 4 kills as well, so very, very decent game within World of Tanks. And so yeah, I guess it can perform, but in the majority of situations, you know, we still ended up losing. If we just had a little bit more armour, where we could have bounced a couple of tier 7 premium rounds from the E25 there, we may have been able to pull out a victory if we then managed to regroup with our teammates. But there you go, that's one game down. Let's have a look at another gameplay showing a different kind of style to the tank. Second game in, it is Vineyards, probably one of my favourite maps within the game, or at least out of the most recent maps that Wargaming have released into the game as a brand new console exclusive map, that is. Of course, what we need to do in this map is we have the ability to basically snipe within it, and that is something that you don't get on a lot of maps, or at least the benefits of sniping in a medium tank. Often you do need to be at least somewhat forward within the game and make somewhat of an impact in the forward direction to be able to win the game. Obviously that still applies to this map, and if you don't push forward at all, you're obviously going to then get targeted from behind. So yeah, it becomes a little bit of a scenario where you do need to be a little bit careful. And now, obviously, at the beginning of the game, we make our position up here. I always like to do this because you can get some spotting damage on people and potentially spot people that try and cross immediately over to the left-hand side of where we are onto that hill. And often you can catch people like the T-43 there crossing the field. So obviously, already picking up a little bit of damage. Obviously, only one shot of damage, so you're not going to be raising the roof here, but often you actually pick up a couple of shots maybe, and you usually don't get spotted because of all of the bushes here that count as bush or bushes within World of Tanks, so there's always that. Anyway, What do we do from this position? Well, what we've got to do is analyse the situation at hand, and of course we do notice that pretty much none of our team went over to the left or the southern side of the map in the town, which often doesn't lead very well, and so you do have to kind of make a play to try and help out this side. Obviously we've got a light tank here that spotted us over to the left. Unfortunately he goes down into a dip, so we don't manage to actually hit him here, which is so painful when you're in this scenario. If you want to poke a ridgeline, you see just here how much of the tank you have to expose. It's pretty much your entire tank, and that allows people to just hone in on that big fat lower plate, and people do that very easily, and often if they're auto-aiming you, it actually is probably in the region of your big fat lower plate. So yeah, a lot of the times you'll be getting auto-aimed by people and penned, which is my least favourite thing within World of Tanks, is when people that probably don't deserve to be able to pen you manage to pen you. But anyway, talking about auto aims, we take a lock on the LTTB and then auto focus in using the down sights, which is something I always recommend if you can. Make sure that you always go down sights if possible. Don't obviously just go down sights when you're super close range, because a lot of the time you'll lose the target in the scope if you do try to do that. But in a scenario like this, we can afford to actually take out tanks straight away using the sniper mode, because they're at a decent distance, and that's something you can utilise in your games. Obviously what we do here is go for the IS. I'm hoping that I can put a round into him and be able to get some more damage. Obviously what we do need to do now is, since we did get spotted, we've got to be very careful. We're going to back up against this rock here and hope that no one in the left hand side of the map decides to hit us from where we are now. The VK 1601P is over there, so we're going to focus him, get a little bit of damage on the side of a fat super heavy tank on from the German line. No complaints there. Probably painful, very painful to be the VKP in this scenario, where you're just getting peppered from the side by medium tanks, and if you turn your turret to us, he's going to expose his turret to the enemy, or if you try and turn in an ogre slug, it doesn't work either. So yeah, just I feel bad for this VKP. Regardless of whether I feel bad for him, what we're going to try and do is get this light tank out of the game. 1600 damage, 1800 damage so far even within this game. So not an awful round, but what we'll see within this one is the ability to try and get extra damage. And picking out even some decent scenarios out of something that maybe isn't the best scenario that you'll ever encounter within World of Tanks. Obviously on our right hand side, if we don't deal with them, we're then going to be getting taken out from the left hand side as the VKP then moves it up, because we didn't manage to take him out of the game, so he has a pretty meaty gun. That's going to be able to really deal a lot of damage to us, and so if we can get him out as quickly as possible, that is obviously the benefit. What we do now try and do is get around into the IS here. We do try and lock him down using the frontal drive wheel of the tank. And then here we make the misplay. What I should have done is just relocated back further, as the Sturm actually manages to pen us, which is really annoying. Yet again, probably an auto-aim, and that's what I'm talking about, the auto-aims managing to hit us. But we do manage to hit the IS there, and we know that there is most likely going to be someone over there. You saw that we saw that the TL1 over there was managing to hit us, the auto-loading American medium tank that will feature on the channel very soon, since I did pick it up as part of the bundles and sales this week. Now, 3000 damage done. What we've got now is a scenario where we need to get rid of this light tank. Let's get him. Right, first one missed. Okay, never mind. Let's try and get him with the second one. Right, let's move forward. LTTB, easy target, very easy, as long as you actually aim properly and don't be a bot. And so yeah, he's now moving, taking a little bit of a run around. It's now 1 versus 5, so it's not looking good for us. Obviously it's gone from bad to worse, and we're on our own now. LTTB, however, is moving forward. We made another misplay. Come on, Eclipse, actually get him. What you see me doing here is obviously changing, and then we managed to only track the LTTB, who does manage to miss, and then we're going to wait, push. Are you joking? We've missed him again. Right, okay. He bounces. We miss again. Oh god, it's one of those scenarios where I was thinking maybe I could potentially win when I was on 400 hit points against the LTTB, and some potentially then use my camouflage to be able to deal damage. But yeah, okay, we then miss that shot, very easy shot as well, and then just as if, yeah, we managed to pick up the LTTB, but at the cost of our tank against the T-78. And that's kind of the thing that you can probably establish, is that even tier 6s can pen you reliably in this tank if they do aim and auto-aim. And yeah, it makes the armour model a little bit tedious to play, and of course you're a massive slab for any artillery to come at you within the game, and trust me, they do come at you within the game. So overall, what is my opinion on this tank? Did Wargaming get it right? No. I think they kind of missed the mark with this premium tank. It just doesn't have it all, and it could have been a great tank, but it just doesn't have the gun depression to begin with, because it is a big slab of basic Russian armour that doesn't really work in terms of its armour. It has a pretty accurate gun, but that's about it. And yeah, you have mobility so you can get your gun into the action, but if you're taking hits that are probably higher alpha anyway against you, it doesn't end up very well for you. But there we go, the K91-2. Would I recommend it? No. Save your gold, buy something else, buy a tier 1 LPC, much better tank. Yeah, just save your gold, try and get something else. It's probably what I would do. But then again, if you're interested in the K91-2, we will have another video coming out soon where we test out probably one of the more broken aspects of the vehicle. There is probably only one thing that we could possibly do with this tank to be able to make it broken, because to be honest with you, deep down inside this tank just wants to be good and it isn't. And other than that, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, of course, leave a like and subscribe, and check out any of the other gameplay and tank reviews on the channel in the comments section down below, and also in the playlist in the description below, and there should be some on screen. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope if you don't watch another video by Christmas that you have a fantastic one, and I hope to see you there. Goodbye.